The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
There's a lot of talk in this country about the federal deficit, but if we hope to meet the moral test of our times, if we hope to eradicate child poverty or AIDS or joblessness or homelessness or any of the other issues that were chronicled before I came on stage, then I think that we're going to have to talk more about the empathy deficit, the ability to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, to see the world through somebody else's eyes. The mother who can't insure her child, or the steel worker who's been laid off, the family who lost the entire life they'd built together when the storm came to town. An empathy deficit. When we start thinking like this, when we choose to broaden the ambit of our concern and empathize with the plight of others, whether they are close friends or distant strangers, it becomes harder not to act. It becomes harder not to help.
Welcome to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Peroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini. And today we wanted to take a minute to thank Jay Young from City Athletic Club for being a partner with the Rise Above Show. And also mealprepvegas.com. They're also a partner with the Rise Above Show, so they do customized meals for you, whether you're a competitor or just want to eat healthy during your work days. Their phone number is 624-9286, and you can talk to them about your meals, or you can also email them at mealprepvegas.com. And also, we want to mention that Joe Peroni is a personal trainer out at City Athletic Club on Cimarron and Sahara. So if you're looking for a personal trainer, every level, it doesn't matter. You can be the first starting out, or you can be a competitor. He does nutrition plans and also personal training. He's also a marriage and family counselor, so he's doing that, and he's also the host, the writer for the From Rise Above show. And I am a hairstylist out at Body Spa West. My room number is 38. I specialize in hair extensions. I'm a color correction expert, color, whatever you want to call me. That's my thing. I'm also a wellness coach for women, so I do personal training also out at City Athletic Club. And the idea behind my training is, to get obviously the ladies in shape, but also get their brains in shape too, because that comes along with the whole body image problem or issues, or I don't know if it's a problem, but it's an issue with a lot of women. And also we'll be doing upcoming workshops. The butterfly effect, we did one workshop about a month ago, and it was well received, so I have more coming in the future. Hopefully the next one will be in October. That will be announced on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So, you'll be getting news of that.
When's the date on the next workshop? Do you have one?
I don't have one set. So I was going to do the next one in a week or so, but some logistics got in the way there. So we're going to pre-plan that one, but that's going to be more of a workshop that we're going to be working together hands-on. The first one was more of an introduction about what the butterfly effect is about, and it's basically about lifting other women up and as a community helping each other out and sharing skill sets and experiences that we have in a loving, caring way and helpful way, and not the traditional you have to take responsibility for your stuff at some point, and how to get better at doing that and helping each other get to that point, because all women have been through different experiences in their lives, and when you're going through something, you think you're the only one, and then you find out that no, you're not the only one that's had to go through something good, bad. It's not always bad stuff that we experience, but anyway, so that's up and coming. And what else do I do? And I co-host the Rise Above show. I'm the social media person, so I do all the social media sharing of the shows, the pictures, the announcements that you see. I also contact and interview our future guests for the show, so that's my part in this, and also doing some talking with Joe.
And we will be doing some good talking today.
Mm-hmm.
I have one quick question for you, Heidi. If I were to get some of those hair extensions, would people be able to tell that I had hair extensions?
Yes. You need more hair,
Okay.
John. You need to have
Don't
something
you have
to put
attach the hair to
You have to
something?
attach it to something. I mean, I could maybe try with the tape ins. I could maybe stick it to your scalp.
Okay.
And then we could put like a toupee over it.
Oh,
like
that
we
would be
totally
cool.
could do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we could totally do
All
it.
right.
Yeah. You just made me think of that. I was like, yeah, we could totally do that.
Okay, so today's show, I've been doing a lot of thinking this week because I had a lot of free time. Not really, but my brain is always going. So I want to call it social intercourse versus social, let's say, well, actually it wouldn't be social, but it would be just masturbation. Now, I know that title seems a little bit racy. Well, let's hope not.
It is.
Okay, so for those of you who don't like a racy title like that, okay, you can change it to this. Okay, social connection versus how we're basically isolated as human beings now. So that's the difference. Social connection versus isolation. And when that happens, especially when you see in the news like this week, there's a lot of lack of empathy. And so I noticed that in the news, how one side wants to talk and no one wants to listen on the other side, and vice versa. I'm not picking a side. I'm saying that they're both in the same boat in terms of not being able to look at what the other side is. And actually, Obama, before he was even president, talked about an empathy deficit in the United States, where you can't talk about a deficit in terms of money or anything else in this world until you want to talk about empathy, because you need to know how to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So then I got to thinking, why are we here? First of all, is it true that we have lack of empathy? And if it is true, how can we prove it? Why did it happen? When did it happen? And how did it happen? So then something else hit me, if you can believe this. So I'm watching a video on YouTube, and of all people, it was the band Leonard Skinner. So I'm watching this Leonard Skinner video. Freebird is the name of the song. You should know it. And it was from 1977, the Oakland Coliseum. And so I'm not allowed to play the video anymore, or else they'll take us off YouTube. But if you would like to, and you should, watch the video. It's about 12 minutes long. You know, before people had that instant gratification thing. So it's long. It's a great song with great guitar solos. And as I was watching it, I saw like about 15 different things where their society in 1977 was different than it is now. So I started to write it down, and it's just amazing. It's almost like, okay, we can debate this all we want about, has society changed? Has technology changed human beings? Have we changed emotionally? Have we changed physically? But when you watch a video from 1977 and you see a camera pan through about 70,000 human beings, there's no debate here. You just watch the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let me just start from the top. Here's a few little things I wrote just to set the stage here for you. This is called Day on the Green. Now, this is just in one show. Leonard Skinner played, Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, the Eagles, Heart, Peter Frampton, Santana, Judas Priest, and the Doobie Brothers. Are you kidding me with that amount of talent? So, I mean, let's go with that. Now, you could say, okay, well, music is to the individual, right? Someone can, but this is what I was thinking. If you watch the Freebird video, you're going to see 3 lead guitar players playing in unison. Could that happen today? Because the amount of talent that it takes to study and to be able to learn how to play that well, and then to be able to play off of other musicians, that takes hours upon hours upon hours of time, which nobody seems to do these days, because you have to go through a lot of mistakes, a lot of hard work.
Right, but to go back just a second, with the whole desensitivity thing with empathy.
Right.
When you said about the concerts, I remember when I was young too, they used to come to our town and you'd have Foreigner and Journey and you'd have all these people in one. They used to call it a Superfest, and they'd all be, at one time, and you couldn't wait because you could not see these bands on social media. You could not see them on TV. You didn't get the visuals that these kids get today.
Right.
So the lack of, the empathy part is, or whatever it is, I think it's the sensitivity. They've been desensitized because everything is visually fed to them already.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I go to a concert when I can download the concert and watch it in the comfort of my own home?
Mm-hmm.
The other part that you just talked about, what did you just say after that about the? I wanted to expand on the desensitivity to people. I believe, this is my belief. I believe that there are artists out there that are doing that. The problem is that they're doing it in their basements and they're doing these little side gigs that they do play off each other. But the problem is because we become so visual today in technology that unless you become famous through the marketing, which again, everything is corporate and it's through sales, nobody's going to know who you are either. Right. So I personally, this is my personal opinion, that I think there are some amazing young musicians out there that do jam, but they're probably jamming in their garages similar to what the guys in my neighborhood did years ago, and they're making their own little videos, and because they're so obtuse with some of the more major things that you're seeing on YouTube, they become lost, and everybody has become so desensitized And then also with that becomes a lack of empathy, because when you become desensitized from, well, why should I get excited about a concert on the green when all I got to do is go on the internet? And these children are brought up that way.
Right.
At an early start. You and I weren't brought up that way. And I also think that empathy, because they don't have those experiences of the feeling that you get to be able to see your band in person and to go and do it with a bunch of girlfriends and, you know, smoke some weed, have a couple Miller Lights, and, you know, I mean, that's what we did, and just have a good time together and do those things. These kids today, I think, are kind of deprived of those experiences because of the computer technology and social media. I mean, and Google and all these things. You can Google just about anything. So it's hard for, I'm not sticking up for the unempathetic people. I'm just saying that empathy is usually accumulated through experiences, and then you can, you work off of that.
I agree with a lot of what you say. It's actually all true, right? Like but what I would take it to the next level here is to say, yeah, that's true because of social media that does that. But it's, okay, on the surface it might seem good, right? Like, say, somebody like me, right, that loves, let's say, Led Zeppelin. You can't see them all the time. You couldn't go on YouTube. Mm-mm. So the thought to see them live, you were seeing some amazing people on this pedestal, and that was your time to see them. Mm-hmm. So it has changed. So in the good part that you can see or hear this music, you know, with one little press of a button, it sounds good. But here's part of the negatives of what you said. I think that there are great musicians playing in their garage somewhere, videotaping themselves. But what used to happen with music, it was a communal thing. And there we go with social intercourse. We used to walk through our neighborhood, and there would be many garage bands playing. Right? And then by the time somebody makes it, they've played together for years. And there's collaborations of other musicians all over the place. So by the time a band makes it, you can be like Bruce Springsteen, right? That it took him 8 years and 5 albums before he even had a one-hit song. So by today's standards, would Bruce Springsteen even exist as a musician that we would know? He wouldn't. He would have disappeared. So now it's like, even to listen to an album, right? Let's take Bruce Springsteen as the example because I used it. When you hear a Bruce Springsteen album back in the 70s, what you were listening to was one person's vision, like an album. Like we have a family album, you have a picture album. That was a music album. Mm-hmm. He wrote everything, every thought, every feeling, every emotion that he had within that last year, put it down in lyrics, and then put music to it, and you sit back and you enjoy what a great artist has to say to you. And you can develop that relationship with the musicians. Today, because people buy one song at a time, they don't know the difference between anything. There is no relationship to an artist, and what does that do to a young brain? It means that I only like what I like when I want. So basically it's masturbation. It's like if I don't get it exactly the way I want it right now for me, I'm not going to listen to this song because it might be a little too slow for me. It might be a little too fast. So you don't deal with it. Then what happens when you're in relationships? It's all good when things are good for me, but the first second there's a downturn, I'm out. So it starts to change your brain into this instant gratification brain, which is really a masturbation brain because it's only about you and you don't think outside yourself.
But I think the instant gratification brain comes with the lack of empathy, and the other part of it is, you know, thinking into the future and thinking about what's coming, you know, down the road if people are not empathetic and they're not caring. I think the thing is to how do we get back to that? Because honestly, living in the past, it's all great, all that's amazing. But the issue is okay, it's the past, and now we have a change in culture, and we have a change in our young people. We even have a change in some of the older people. I mean, honestly, I know a lot of great kids. You know, as a matter of fact, I have that little girl that taught me how to climb. She's like 11 years old, and I watched this girl, and I'm like, what an amazing little athlete she is already. And she has determination. She has a goal set. But these kids that are coming up that have that kind of a goal set, I don't think that this child would lack empathy, but I think they're thrown into a culture that it's almost like a survival. You know, how am I going to survive in this type of evolution? That's how we're going. And I think the the decrease in empathy has a lot to do with, because as a society we've all become desensitized. You can see people killed all the time, and you almost go, oh, that's normal for Northtown. Somebody else got shot again. I lack empathy in certain things because I hear it all the time. Or when you hear, I'll listen to a person, a friend, a client, whatever. I don't want to get, and you kind of go, I'm kind of not feeling this anymore because it's becoming repetitious, and you tend to get, I think that's desensitized. And then when you get desensitized, you start to not have empathy. So I think as a culture we become desensitized because everything, like you say, is instant gratification. But when that's all you know and that's what you're fed, that's all you know. I mean, I had somebody say, how am I supposed to know that what it feels like to be loved by a mother or father if I never had one? You can't miss what you don't know. And I do believe that, there's people that do go back in the past and they try to find the good stuff, but they're also being forced. I like the good stuff, but for me to be able to move forward in this world, however it's becoming, they have to go sort of with the flow and the whole empathy thing. My concern is in the future, with these future workers and, the relationships. If you lack empathy, generally you're not going to have empathy for a partner, so relationships are not going to probably be non-existent too, because it's going to be all about me mentality, and there's not going to be any sacrifice, no giving, taking, compromising. You don't like everybody all the time, every minute of the day.
Right.
So you have to have empathy to say, well, I don't like Joe right now because he came home and he was having a bad day and he's being kind of a jerk right now. But how would I feel? I mean, how do I feel sometimes at the end of my work day? I probably feel the same way. But if you don't put yourself in that place, you just go, oh, well, sorry you had a bad day, but mine was worse. That's the other thing you hear, too. Everybody's got to one-up the next person. It's like, whoa, you didn't even acknowledge the fact that I just said I had a bad day. You had to one-up me and say, well, now you know how I feel. Well, I don't give a shit about how you feel, because I feel
but
how,
see, I think, but
not you. I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying in general.
I know. But see, we grow this, right? That's why I keep going. Video that really shocked me into it, because one of the things I notice is, of course, they all were present. They were all there. They all had these huge smiles on their face. John, go ahead.
He wants to say something.
Okay. Does the name Isaac Asimov mean anything to you?
I know the name, but go ahead.
He's a science fiction writer.
Right.
One of the most famous in the world. In 1953, he wrote a series of books, the first one being The Caves of Steel.
Okay.
Where basically his premise was that in the future, all social interaction was done through his vision of computers, cell phones, that there was no one-on-one actual physical contact between people. The only way that people interacted were through these devices and electronically. And even procreation was done electronically.
Right.
In other words, you sent your sperm over here, and it, and there was no physical contact. Physical contact between human beings was like unheard of, and that's exactly. I mean, so this is what, that's 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah,
it's
happening.
Basically, correctly predicted what we were going to be like in the future.
Well, when you talk about, the cell phones in general or computers, I was telling Joe, if you're in a relationship and you're constantly getting stimuli from your computer and your phone, and it doesn't have to be porn. It doesn't have to. We don't have to go there. It could be. I mean, I'm a stylist, so one of the things that gets me is I love to look at hair pictures. I love to look at makeup, fashion. He doesn't know that because I don't expose him to all that. I don't think he'd care that much. But for me personally, I like art, and I'll go on my phone, and those are the type of things I look up, and I like to look at that. But if I get enough stimuli off of that to get my dopamine and my serotonin and all the happy, good feeling stuff going, what do I need him for?
Yeah.
He all of a sudden becomes very boring, because it's like you're not as colorful and you're not as exciting as my phone or my laptop. And you see that a lot in restaurants. You see it all over now, that people cannot do anything anymore without having, what could possibly be on your phone when you're having dinner with your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, boyfriend, whatever, that could be more important than sitting across from them and having an eye to eye, talking about your day, your week. There can't be, even a text message cannot be that important. I don't care if my client is dying, and I'm seriously saying, him and I, we have that little thing in our house too, that we have to check each other once in a while and say, wait, let's put the phones away. I do it, he does it. Nobody's immune to it. And the point is that you see, and these kids too, if they can go on their phone and computer and get all these action games and all this stimuli, how can you top that?
But okay,
we went to the Who concert.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about too.
And everybody, I mean, and I felt really, really guilty about it. I mean, I was doing it for a reason. I had my cell phone up there and I was recording stuff, but I was doing it because of what I do here. And there were some of the clips and some of the stuff that was going on in the background that I wanted. But 90% of the people,
yeah, it's
they've
sad.
got their cell phones up there and
But you miss the experience.
Jesus Christ, you're there. They're live. We were what? 13th row, center stage.
But you miss the experience when you're looking through your phone, because I've done it for him. I videoed the Who while he's over there having a good time. He's clapping. He's doing his thing. And honestly, I don't even remember. I don't see half of it because I'm like,
okay, so let me cut you right there.
I missed it. And then they'll say, did you see when, he did this or he did that? And I'm like, not really.
So let me throw in my 2 cents. Okay,
it's your show.
So I will.
3 cents.
I will. As a matter of fact, make sure you go back to the text message. I want to make sure I make a comment on that. All right, so let's go back. I want as much experience in my life as possible. I always kind of did. I can remember seeing The Who in 1979. I can tell you that it drizzled. I can tell you that my father was actually driving the car and my mother was in the passenger seat. And I love the fact that my parents were together at that moment. I love everything about it. I remember that Roger Daltrey messed up one word in Young Man Blues. And I thought that was so cool because I knew the words and he didn't. I was 14 years old. I remember seeing The Who in 1982. I can tell you I jumped over one of the turnstiles. I could tell you, and I lost a t-shirt, by the way. I could tell you everything about it. Why? Because I was present. Mm-hmm. Now, just talk about 1982 and 1979. This video I'm telling everybody to watch, please, is from 1977. You will see the most wide-eyed young people so engaged in this. It's amazing. It almost made me want to cry because our society now sucks because everybody is zombied out totally. And these kids were crazy. They were enjoying it. The girls looked really pretty, by the way. And I don't mean because I want to have sex with them. I don't mean it in that way. I mean that their eyes were open. They had fun. They had real hair. There were no implants. There were a lot of girls with no bras, no collagen, fake lips, trying to look like something that they don't. None of the BS that you see today. None of it. The guys were pretty jacked, lean. And I noticed a lot of the guys put the girls on their shoulders so they could see better. And you know what? Try that today at a concert. You're going to get 10 people hitting you going, I can't see. And you know what? They're not even trying to see. They're up there with their cell phone trying to do this. It's all, let me just say that everybody is unconscious. Mm-hmm. Back then, people were conscious. Now, the first thing you might say, 1977, Day on the Green, we're watching Led Zeppelin, we're watching Leonard Skinner, everybody there was probably drunk. I would agree, that's probably true. But you know what? From what I remember when I was a kid, and also maybe John could throw in on this too, because everybody experience is valid, I remember people drinking or doing a little something to enhance their experience to have fun. It was a little fun to get a little bit loose and have a good time. Younger people today, for the most part, are not getting drunk or doing drugs to do that. They're doing it to get hammered because they hate their life. And you don't do heroin as a social drug. It's basically masturbation. It's about you, and you just want to check out, and you're too much of a wuss bag to kill yourself, so you kill yourself in another way, and you just desensitize. I don't remember any of my friends drinking on a Friday night to obliterate themselves. It was more like, hey, football practice is over. Let's get a little bit loose. I'm a little bit nervous. I need one drink to talk to a girl. I'm good. Let's have a good time. You don't see that now. These people are just obliterating themselves. John, what do you think? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And part of the drinking back then, and I'm talking about, because by the time I was 21, I had quit drinking. So
Yeah, I was drinking at 15.
yeah.
So by the time I became
And
legal,
yeah,
I was
through
like,
high
who
school
cares?
and all that, and it was to get a buzz, but it was also because it was illegal.
Right, I didn't think about that. Okay.
It was illegal, so you did it, and I think, and the interesting thing is that's what's happening in not to change the subject, but to get off, it kind of fits in, is that the younger people, there's a lot of them that are smarter than we're giving them credit for,
Right.
because now that that marijuana is legal in a number of states, I mean recreationally, the teen use of marijuana has gone down in those states because it is no longer the forbidden fruit
Right.
that it used to be, and that's why people were getting high. Well, that's not really why people were getting high, but still, you never got so high that you missed the experience.
Right.
It was, yeah.
But because it was illegal too, you were afraid of being too drunk or
Well, there
too
was
high.
exactly.
Okay,
There was
so
the-
you were always
there
like,
was the excitement.
you were on the level where you were like, oh my God, I can't get too drunk because if I go home and my mom smells it on me, or if I don't make it home, or I do something crazy with some guy, So you drank enough that you, like you said, you enjoyed the experience, you loosened up, but because it was illegal, you were scared. Because I was drinking at 13.
Yeah.
I was going across the street after dark.
And one of the
at
biggest
15.
industries at that time was breath mints.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you take a kid, right, from the 70s or even into the 80s and say, but why do you drink? Why do you do this? They're going to say, because I want to have
Because
a
I'm
good
getting
time.
away with
Buzz.
something too.
If you ask kids today, the ones that I have to see in therapy, the real question is, what kind of pain are you hiding?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just total. It's a totally different thing. They're doing it to self-medicate because they hate their life. They're not doing it as a little addition to their life. And then because Heidi had mentioned this, and rightfully so. So that's why I looked it up. It's like, well, you do know, around the 70s, we're known for drugs. The Vietnam was still a big thing, and interestingly enough, drug overdoses have gone up 500% since 1970. Now, even though we have a heroin epidemic or an opioid epidemic now, listen, heroin was a big deal in Vietnam. But these guys came back and their addiction went away. Why? For the most part, is because they were glad to be home. Now, if you're on stuff
and actually,
now, and
I have to argue with that because it wasn't heroin; it was opium.
right,
That in Vietnam, and I mean you had access to heroin, but that was rare. I mean, most of the guys that came back that were addicted to opium, and that's a hell of a lot easier to kick than.
you think it? Yeah, because I don't know. You think it's easier to?
Oh yeah, it's easier to because opium, it's a different kind of high,
All right.
kind of.
Hits your receptors different.
Yeah. So and
But you would
the
also.
people the smart ones were just smoking weed, but
But you would have reason not to do it when you got home.
oh, absolutely.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
take it by today's standards. There's more PTSD and everything now. And compared to Vietnam, I don't want to judge anybody, but I'm going to say Vietnam was much more horrific than what's going on now.
Yeah.
And people can't handle it. It's
But wait.
Yeah, but do you
I
think
wanna
people
argue-
get?
I wanna-
Okay,
I
wait.
wanna make a point.
Do you think
This
as people get smart? This is the thing, because we're getting smarter in some ways, and we
And
have
dumber in
access to statistics, and we have
Right.
access to everything all over the world. You wonder if it was still about the same. The only difference is because we know so much more today. We know what to look for. Even counseling, they should throw half of the shit out that they use now for counseling because our whole human society, we have changed so much. I was thinking about this the other day. Why are we still using the same? Mary and I talked about this too. Why are we still using the same techniques on children in school that they used 100 years ago for child PTSD? They know it exists.
Yeah.
And yet we're still treating these kids that are technologically smarter than most of their parents, and we're treating them like they treated people back 200 years ago.
Like they're still on the farm.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I do want to say something about the PTSD because
Right.
I had one of the shows here about a month or so ago. someone made the comment that the veterans with PTSD were weak. That's why they had PTSD.
No, I wouldn't say they're weak.
And I it's difficult for me sometimes to sit here and keep my mouth shut. But so I thought about it, and when I went home and I was thinking, no, wait a minute, that's backwards. If you are not affected by those kinds of things and seeing what was happened, you are not a human being. You know, how do you not get affected? How do you not be impacted by shit like that? So if you can go through something like that and go, oh, that was cool, then there's something wrong with you.
But
great.
You have no empathy.
But that comes down to empathy, and I can guarantee
that's why.
You could almost say today that could happen. I mean, what happened the other? My dog story. I gotta tell you my dog story quick. The other day, I was walking my dogs. I came back my normal way, and there was a car there as we were walking by. And these two dogs were barking, going crazy, jumping up against the windows. And I looked again, and I was like, "There's nobody in there. There was no owner in this car." So of course I'm like, oh my God, it's not 120 out, but it's still hot. It was a black Mustang. The windows were up. So, and it was in the sun. It was hot. I mean, I was in my car. I got in my car with my dogs just before that. It was super hot. It was more than 80. So I walk into the pet store. I tell them what's going on. They're like looking at me like, I told Joe, everybody's like in a zombie state. Like, well, what do you want me to do about it? And I'm thinking of all places, the pet place would be. So I asked the girl, I said, would you do me a favor? Could you stand by my car? Because I don't want to be like that person that left my dogs in the car and I had the windows down. I don't want them jumping out or whatever. And I'll go in the Lakes Lounge and I'll see if anybody in there owns the car. I walk in, I asked the bartender, I said, she goes, can I help you? I said, there's two dogs out in the car. It's hot. There's no owner. The alarm was going off in the car. And I'm just wondering if somebody in here, if it's their car. And she goes, it's nobody here. And I said, it's nobody here? Like, and I wanted to say to her, you seriously know everybody that's sitting in that restaurant what car they drove here in?
Yeah.
So she didn't give a crap.
Right.
And then the guy sitting next to her, he's looking at me kind of smirking like, look at this lady, you know? So I said, you know what, is it okay if I go in your restaurant and ask a couple people? I went in the restaurant and I went to 3 tables and I said, do you own the car? Every single person in that restaurant was like, no. Finally, when I got to the third guy, he asked me why. And I told him and he goes, it's not my car. Like, you're worried, like everybody lacked
You're worried about dogs?
empathy and nobody cared, and it was like walking into a zombified atmosphere where I was like, and I told Joe when I got home, and then thankfully this older gentleman came out that owns that place and he said, what's your problem? And what's my problem?
Right.
I go, my problem is there's 2 dogs out in that car, there's no owner there, the alarm's going off, it's hot out, and it's against the law now to do that. He goes, all right, then I'll call the police. Now whether or not he did,
No, and that's what you're supposed to do. That's what they tell you to do. Call the police and stay there.
yeah.
Rather than break the window
Well,
and let them
that
out.
was what I said to Joe. Instinctively, you'd want to break the window, but then the way these dogs were cranked up, they were big dogs. It was hot. I don't feel like getting attacked because these dogs are already irritated.
Right.
But the fact that my point with the story is, you know, yeah, I have a sensitivity to dogs or any animal, but what struck me as odd is that I'm like going, I didn't have my phone. That's what it was. I left my phone at home, and all I needed was a phone call or something, and nobody really wanted. They didn't first of all care, and they didn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. So if you lack empathy, you can't really care about another human being or anything else. And that's what's starting, I think, to happen. That
we see it more and more every day.
We just turn our cheeks. You know, somebody's getting beat up on the street, and you kind of just drive by and go, oh, well, what do you want me to do about it? I don't want to stop because I'm going to get hurt.
That sucks.
That sucks. Sucks to be you today.
Let me throw in one thing about the PTSD.
Please.
Now, a lot of things are debatable, and there's a lot of moving parts.
Of course.
But one thing that's really important that we should probably throw in there is that if there is a pre-existing condition, so to speak, for someone to have PTSD, it would be a lack of connection. Number one, social connection.
Wait. So you're saying that a person who develops PTSD lacks social connection?
Not 100% across, but it would be a pre-existing condition.
So,
in other words,
if I see another human being being killed, or many of them being killed or burned alive, the reason that I feel bad about that and have PTSD is because of a lack of social connection. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
But it does, because there's a paradox in here, right? In other words, if you take, let's say, a child, and they have a great attachment with their parents, it allows them to leave without a problem. And it looks like they're running away. But it's because they have confidence that they have a good connection. So it allows them to come back. And it's kind of the way when we're dealing with human beings overall as a community. If we have human connection and something really bad happens and it's torturous and it's a trauma, there's more chance of that person being able to be put back into society and feeling well if they know that there's social connection and they've been loved before. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but it makes no sense.
But it makes a lot of sense. When you go through the psychology of it, you can... I'll show you the stuff on it.
Okay.
You're going to see more and more, and I don't mean just PTSD, but
Right.
you're going to see more and more, whatever it could be, oppositional, defiant, anti-personality disorder. You're going to see a lot of stuff, and it really comes from not being connected to society or not being connected to your home. If something really bad happened to me, and I felt that when I went home, Heidi would have no empathy or no care for me, my chance of recovery would be a lot less. And it would be even more less if I felt that there was never a connection between us.
But we're talking about two different issues here, if I understand what you're saying correctly.
Right.
One is the condition itself, the other is recovery.
Right.
I agree with you that the more social connection you have, the easier your recovery is.
Absolutely.
Or the ability to handle it. But that still does not justify the situation. You still, what I'm hearing you say, and I may be hearing you incorrectly, is that if you have that social connection, you are not affected by those things.
Oh, you will be affected.
That's my point. You
okay.
are
No,
effective,
listen,
but you know how to deal with it.
Right.
That's my point.
Right. Okay. So
Right. Is that
good? That's
if you are not affected by something like that, then you have no empathy, you have no compassion,
True.
you have no connection.
true.
You have to have those three things to be to be affected by that. Now, the more of those you have, the easier it is for you to deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like
Then-
if somebody
then
has
that I'll agree with. I'll
right.
give
If
you that.
anybody
Right.
has some kind of trauma
Right.
and they're trying to, it's very, very difficult for people to get over trauma. I mean, listen, we don't really totally get over it. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
So
We just learn how to deal with
Let's
it.
throw that out. So
Right.
we have to manage it.
Right.
Now, part of my.
Hey, I managed it for 40 years without any help.
Do you want to go on a break, or do you just want to run this
No,
straight through?
just go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Because one of the reasons why you like the show is because we have a fix or a potential fix for the problem.
Exactly.
Okay. So let me go to the fix.
Even if they're wrong.
Well,
no.
Oh,
Joe,
but here's-
we don't
I'm
know
messing
if they're
with you,
wrong
Joe.
yet.
But here's what's interesting, what just happened. I want to point this out, is that you guys were able to have a go at back and forth dialogue and clarify. You were able
Yeah.
to have a conversation to clarify which side you both were on, because I was a little confused there myself, going, I'm not getting what's going on here.
Yeah.
But I just sat back and figured, I'm just going to let you guys hash this out. But what we're seeing a lot lately on the news and different things
Is you're a fucking
you're
idiot.
a fucking idiot because you don't get what I'm saying, and fuck you with your beliefs, and fuck you, right?
No, but
So
but-
what I want
but-
to point out here is that you can have a conversation. We can talk about things as
because
people.
we have empathy and compassion.
Right. But when you
And that's what allows us to have that conversation and say, if you really feel this way, well, that's okay. We're still friends, even if you are a fucking idiot.
No, I actually prefer being challenged because it does bring it out better if
Right.
it came across wrong.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding
But,
what you were
yeah, I
saying,
mean-
and I was misunderstanding what you were saying.
yeah, I want to make sure I get this right.
Please, go
Because you're
ahead.
challenging me, so it's good. One of the things that you can trace back to this empathy problem is a lot of therapists thinking that they're doing the right thing, but what they'll do is they'll just say to somebody, okay, you need to just love yourself. You can't love anybody until you love yourself. Back to the masturbation thing, right? But let's be honest about this. if the first time you meet a therapist and they say, listen, you need to love yourself, but yet society basically says that you're not successful, you don't really have any good friends, you don't have anything meaningful going on in your life, and your parents have been pretty much distant from you, how in the world do you turn around and say you love yourself? It doesn't work. Most of the people that I know, they go outwards and then they start to try to help people. And in doing so, they end up developing a friend by asking somebody else how they're doing. And once they start developing connection, then they learn. It's like, I like my life. And then they start to love themselves. So you can go around that way too.
But they like themselves, and they start to like themselves because they start to see qualities in themselves that were dormant for a long time that they didn't know existed. When you love yourself, people... They have this misconception that if you love yourself, you're going to be this conceited, it's all about me, which it is. We're kind of going that way. But when you can look at yourself and say, these are qualities about me that I like, or when I'm able to help somebody, or I'm able to listen to somebody, or I'm able to be empathetic, or I can help give somebody a solution, you throw it back on yourself and you go, yeah, I think I'm a pretty cool person because I'm able, like I've said this to people, I have really good communication skills. Sometimes with us it falters in that area. That's a different whatever. But I just said this to somebody the other day. I said I have very good communication skills, and I find it, and I feel good about myself when I'm able to, help somebody. But that reaffirms me to say, one of the things I like about myself is the fact that I do have empathy and I do understand, and that I'm able to help other people. So I look at that as a gift because I don't think everybody can do that. So when you do something outwardly, it's a reflection of you. As far as if you do something out to help somebody else, it's a reflection of what is inside you. And people get that confused with when you say love yourself. Loving yourself isn't being a narcissistic, conceited, jerk where you're like, I'm above it all and I'm amazing and your life stinks and I'm just going to preach to you about how to be happy. That we already know that. We talked about that one day.
And I get what you're saying, but here's where the problem starts to come in, is that we took that and then we spun it inside out with a lot of self-help people saying, no, just love yourself. In other words, if you're born, you're worth loving yourself just for that. And I don't disagree with that totally, but it does kind of dovetail with, if you compete, you should get a trophy. If you breathe, you're automatically lovable. I don't disagree with that as one human being to another, but other human beings don't buy into that. Most people have to feel some type of success in their life to feel good about themselves. It's just basic stuff, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We need to be able to eat and drink, and if you can have that, you get some food in your stomach, okay, that's the first step. We feel pretty good. The second part is, can you go to sleep at night and feel safe? Because if you can't, you're not going to have self-esteem. The next part of gaining self-esteem is love and belonging. Well, there's the other part of the self-esteem movement that makes no sense, right? You need to just be an individual and love yourself, irresponsible, or it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You should be able to be by yourself and be okay, which is true to a half extent. But Maslow would say, listen, you're not going to take somebody in solitary confinement, and most likely they're not going to feel good about themselves. If you go through life as the outcast, the oddball, the person who's bullied, you're not going to get along very well. You need love and belonging, and then the next step becomes self-esteem, and then you can reach higher.
Well, self-esteem is based upon doing a task and finishing it, whether you finish it well or not. That's how self-esteem is built. And because culturally now we live in a very quick gratification society that, oh my God, you can't give all those people a trophy, not my son, he'll feel really bad. Well, sometimes you just have to feel bad because the next thing that you do, you might be better at than that person that got the trophy for that.
And give him the trophy, he's not going to feel good
self-esteem,
either.
Self-esteem is built on accomplishments. It's built on goal setting. I'm going to try this, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But in the self-esteem movement, like you said, with all the loving yourself, I think, that I don't know how that went in a totally different direction where it was supposed to be, but you do have
I think the mistake that we've all made, and I mean all of us as a society, is we have focused on the trophy rather than the accomplishment.
Right.
And getting that, accomplishing something.
Exactly.
And it's like we have to win, we have to get a trophy, we got to do this, we got to do that. No. Sports is learning to work together as a team, and this is where women have had a back seat to men, because over the years women have not grown up playing sports. So that's why I think this is my only my opinion.
And I'm going to back you up in a second here.
Is that that's why women tear each other down instead of build each other up, because they haven't had that experience of working as a team to accomplish a goal. You want to get the football into the end zone. To do that, you all have to work together as a team to do that. And women growing up as little girls didn't have that as much as men.
Women growing up as little girls, they at a very young age compete with other women. Very young.
Yeah.
Because it starts with your father.
Yes.
If you have a brother, if you have a sister, well, it's more so probably with a sister.
Right.
You start to compete for your father's attention.
Right.
And then, the men do that too, because then you'll hear, my dad never said derogatory things about any of his girls, but he would make comments like, you're Italian, you're always going to be a thick girl. You're muscular, you're not going to be built like your sisters. All right, well,
but
what does that mean?
His intention was to try to make you feel better about yourself.
But I took that as, I'm not short and petite and skinny like my sister, so I must not be attractive. That. So then it kind of perpetuates into that. But I agree with the team thing, that girls have been forced. But now there is more team sports for girls. There's the soccer, there's the basketball. I played basketball in
which
school.
I think is awesome. I think that
that was met with my dad, and when I signed up for basketball, because I ran track prior to that and did that, and I was a sprinter.
Yeah, but that's an individual.
It's an individual. But when I joined basketball, he was like not going to have it. He said, "That's a boy sport. What are you, a lesbian? Lesbians do that. Blah 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 blah." I go, "Dad, I'm not a lesbian." I go, "I just want to do something," and I wasn't a cheerleader because I was too shy.
Yeah.
And of course, and I played basketball, and I did become very good at it. I was taught that the teacher or the coach that put me on the team, he said, "I don't care that girl can't shoot. She can run."
Yeah.
So because I was quick, that's the only reason I made the team. And then they taught me how to, and that's self-esteem building. Yeah. When I couldn't hit that rim for nothing, I could run. They would teach me how, and I felt really good. I was like, I couldn't even never play ball, but it taught you how to work together as a team. And not all girls have that experience because, again, it's a guy sport.
Yeah. No, I agree. Listen, sports are important.
And how many times even today you hear that? Girls will play sports, and you'll hear, well, she must be a lesbian. And if you're pretty, you're still a lesbian if you play basketball or soccer.
You're just a pretty lesbian.
You're just a pretty lesbian.
Well, let's go back a little bit. If you're competing for attention, that's the basis of narcissism right there. Mm-hmm. Right? So we need to increase who you are. But there's other ways, too. Like I was looking at this. Since the year 2000, there's been a 40% decrease in empathy. What do you look at that? Like, where does that start? It starts at home. That's the first thing.
How is that measured?
They have a test. I was actually going to do it, but it was going to take too long. Yeah, they do testing on it. There's
the t-test for the statistical t-test.
Yeah, and they go through all this stuff. I'll actually I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool.
The main one. There's a ton, but there's some are more important than others.
I'm interested in that shit.
But they start looking at the years of when this happened. You could start to kind of figure out what's going on. One of the things is that we kind of talk about children do not play with their friends anymore. If you don't play with friends in unstructured activity, here's a list that you don't learn to compromise, you don't learn to share, you don't learn to make rule making, you don't do problem solving, conflict resolution, you don't learn to bargain. I'll give you 3 of these cars if you give me one of those. You learn to do all this stuff, and you don't develop.
You can't have my steely, but you can have the cat's eye.
But how important is that?
It was important at the time, man.
Yeah, you learn what's important to people. What their currency is, so to speak. You learn what's important to you. You learn how to argue, which is good, and then you come up with some type of thing. And going back to the music thing, bands today are not really going to be doing that, because bands that are really good have to yell and argue and scream and come up with some type of configuration that works. By today's standard, that doesn't happen. So, that destroyed it. The other thing I was looking at is, when was the last time somebody actually had a family dinner? We don't do that anymore. In 1960, the average family dinner lasted 1 hour, and they did it about 6 times a week, and everybody participated. They either went shopping for the food, they prepared the food, they ate the food, and they cleaned up afterwards. Now, why would this be social intercourse compared to masturbation? I'll tell you why. Because by 2010, average dinner lasts 12 minutes. Nobody's talking, and it's not even a daily practice, so they can't even get a thing of, do you even do it twice a week? The answer is probably no. But here's worse. Why don't they do it? Because Johnny wants to watch on his YouTube thing. Sally wants to do this on her YouTube thing. You know, and nobody's... So in other words, that's masturbation too. It's not communal at all. You know, I even into the 90s when there used to be writers for TV shows, we used to sit around. I remember we had the kids around and stuff. We used to watch like Seinfeld, things like this. It may not be the most engaging, intelligent thing in the world, but it did put you in the same room together at a specific time, every week. So when you look back on it, I don't remember if the jokes were funny or not, but I just remember having a good time eating together and talking about our day. Do we do that now? No. Which is the other thing that happened around 2000 or late 90s. Reality TV. We have total loser nobodies without any talent whatsoever on TV, getting famous just for being on TV. Narcissism. When I was a kid and I looked at somebody like John Travolta, as much as I said I didn't like him, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was jealous. Here's a guy who could sing, who could dance, who can look good. He was amazing at everything he did. Do you realize how much talent just that one guy had? And everybody had talent back then. Now, if you grow up, you're thinking, well, I'm kind of a loser. I got nothing going for me. Hey, I could get on TV and be famous for doing nothing. I can just get fat and look good like the Kardashians and just have people, or I can act like a total drama queen or a jerk and get popular. You don't have to be talented anymore. You know, what are the chances of like Donnie and Marie? They've been around for like 40 years. They had their own TV show. Now they're selling out still on the strip. That's never going to happen again. You don't have people on TV that are that talented to do that. You know, that won't happen again. So all that is part of this whole social intercourse is gone. Also, what else happened? Gated communities. I don't remember gated communities when I was young. So now we're separating people from other people. And once you start separating from other people and saying, well, our community is better than yours, or yours is better than ours, so I want what you have, where's the empathy there? Because you're not communicating with other human beings. You're only communicating with the people you want to when you want to, which goes off along my thoughts about Facebook. It's funny how people get defriended all the time because I have a difference of opinion. What is that all about? It's childishness. You'll see it too if in this football thing that happened this week. Somebody takes a knee. Fine, there's nothing wrong with that. Last time I looked, you can have freedom of speech. It offends you? Okay, we all get offended by something. But now there's this thing that they want to boycott the NFL. I'll tell you what my parents told me a long time ago, which is not unusual, by the way, for somebody of my age. When you're in a community or when you're in a group of people and things don't go your way, you don't take your ball and go home. You're in your rights to do that, but don't be a pussy. Like that, you can't do that. Like that is so, I don't want to say it's un-American, but it's unhuman being.
And it's stupid because you're going to boycott, they're boycotting a sport they like. Like how stupid is that? Like,
well, they're tying themselves to something because they, again, it's masturbation, right? They insulted me in some way and I can't deal with it, so I'm going to throw out the baby with the bathwater because I can't handle anything. So that's where we are these days. On Facebook, you can actually read your own news, right? Like we lost a sponsor over this. All I did was hold up and go, okay, here's the stock market, here's the number, and here's where it was, and that offends him, among a few other things. But basically, everything I had was factual. I don't want to hear that news.
Whoa. You can't talk facts. Nobody wants facts
anymore.
That's right.
Anymore.
They want what they want. They want somebody. Freedom of speech is, I want you to agree with me.
yeah.
Is that not a version of masturbation?
Yes.
So there you go. We're back to that. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
but that's my point.
so from a psychology point of view, and I know you like this. Okay, if you have a belief, and I am able to prove to you, without a shadow of a doubt, that your belief is wrong. Let's say, I know the sun rises in the west. It doesn't. It rises in the east. I can prove that to you. But you still believe what you want to believe. You go fake news. Whatever you do. What does your belief become at that point?
Irrelevant.
Distorted.
That's a great answer, because in today's thing, it's not like you can't even call it a wrong belief. You would still say that you believe it.
But there are beliefs. There's things that I believe, and there's things that I think.
Right.
Now, the beliefs are just things that, for whatever reason, I think those tissues are white.
They are white.
And that's a fact.
Right.
Now, I believe they're white, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are.
They're off-white.
Yeah, see?
They could be off-white.
But from my perspective, this is what it looks like to me.
But there are answers, right? So
Yes.
from a psychological point,
The truth is the truth.
the truth is the truth, but not anymore. If you are socially
No, I disagree. The truth is the truth. When you say
okay, I know
not
what you're saying.
anymore,
I know what you're saying.
people
I'm
don't
saying it
accept that anymore.
Yeah, I'm saying it metaphorically. In a
Right,
sense.
okay.
Because
I'll buy that.
psychologically speaking,
That's true.
And this is what this is the big the end point, so to speak.
The climax.
The climax.
Climax of the masturbation.
Because
Woohoo!
psychologically speaking, if those tissues are white, and you say they're white, and I know that they're white, but I keep saying that they're green, I don't have a false belief anymore, and my belief is not wrong. From a psychological point of view, I'm delusional.
Correct.
And that would be, I have a delusion.
And that's exactly what I'm going to think. You're
Right.
delusional.
Exactly.
And have you seen the meme that's been running around on Facebook all the time? There's two guys standing there, and they're looking at a number drawn on the ground.
Right.
And the one guy is saying, that's a 6. And the
I
other
seen
guy is
that,
saying,
yeah.
on the other end, that's
a
a
9.
9. And they are both correct. Because
Yeah.
from their perspective, and that's what we have lost. We
Right.
do not allow people to have a different perspective.
That's true. And that's part of, what we're talking about today is that I believe
Because if I came around here and looked at those from the other side, they may be gray.
But they're not.
No, but I'm saying, I at least have to, before I say, no, you're full of shit, you're delusional, I at least have to come around there and look for myself.
Right. So there's 2 points to be made, right? Like, there is truth. There is truth.
Yes.
So in this case, if I keep saying that they're green, I'm delusional. And you could probably diagnose me as,
Crazy.
delusional, just whatever you want to do.
Schizoid paranoia.
That's crazy.
So in other words, there's about 30 to 35% of Americans right now that can be diagnosed as having some type of delusion. They don't have an altered sense of truth. They're delusional.
There's actually, I think, about, what was it, 62.5 million?
That's about right. Yeah. Now, the other way is to have a different perspective, and we can speak about
You
it.
just got that, didn't
I
you?
did too, but I'm trying not to make it political. Because sometimes, listen, because sometimes the
It's like,
liberals
what
are
the
kind of
hell?
messed up too, by the way.
I know. Oh, no,
You know.
no, yeah, hey, listen. Yeah.
So again, it's perspective, right? Like, everybody should have a point of view. Like, I can look at someone
POV.
point of view. I can see someone who says, I am very hurt. I feel, all this discomfort, and I feel like the football players are disrespecting the flag by taking a knee.
Why not ask the guy?
Yeah, I can understand that.
Why not ask the guy?
But
Hey,
why don't you ask
why
him?
are you taking a knee?
And giving up his whole career,
Yeah.
millions of dollars, obviously it means a lot to him. So instead of just ripping on him and then doing this big tirade, masturbation tirade, I love when people say rants, Rant is nothing more than just, you're basically just masturbating in somebody's eye and leaving. Because you're not, am I wrong?
In their eye?
Well,
Why'd it have to be their eye?
because you do it and they blink and then you run away.
And then you go, oh.
Like, there's some type of...
I said, why is it in their eye?
Because there's some type of degradation in that. That's what I'm saying.
Is it?
So by the time they get this garbage out, you're out of the room.
And this show is officially
Messy. Officially
No, but tell me
mature.
that's
off
not
the
true.
tracks, off the rail.
Turn the channel.
No, but that's exactly what I was telling you. Like, people today, they spew their stuff on somebody. Okay, let me say it this way. In our society today, because we're not communal anymore and we don't learn how to work with other human beings, we become totally inefficient and dysfunctional in how to work with somebody else who thinks differently than us. So we get on Facebook and sometimes in person, and we basically throw up our negativity on somebody, even if there's nothing to back it up other than our own anger. And then we don't listen to the response. We run out of the room before we can actually come to some type of conclusion. And that's the point I was making today, is that social intercourse used to be a thing. I have so much information here about, listen, 50% of people in America right now don't even know their next door neighbor's names. Like, that's insane. And I thought that was a terrible thing. Then I thought, I don't know my next door neighbor's names either. But I could tell you when I was
I know the one
kid,
next door to them.
only because I hit his car. That's why. We exchanged. But then that's true too, by the way. But when I was a kid, it was not unusual.
Oh, you knew everybody in the neighborhood, and they
we knew
you.
everybody.
Yeah.
And, people go, well, that means you're old. No, it means we're socially connected. Somewhere down the line, we learn that we are we, and just that's it. It's I. It's all about masturbation. And this whole thing about having a social network has gone away. Our phones are not helping. I remember saying
Thus, that's
Can I
why
say
there's
this about
social media.
The text
Because
messaging.
some people, that's your only connection to
Listen, I love when
social
people make this excuse about, they get a text message and they have to answer it.
Yeah.
Listen, we had the equivalent of that when I was a kid too, by the way.
That was
It was called
wait.
emergency breakthrough on your phone. Now, if I was talking to somebody
You have
like
to go
my mother, if I was talking to somebody like my mother and I had a girl do an emergency breakthrough and I had to get off the phone with my mother, I would be so angry. Don't you dare call unless it's a true emergency, because I'm on the phone. I am busy. Think about the brain that would
Yeah, but
say
the thing
that.
is, you might have a chance to get laid.
That's true, but I also drew a boundary of what's important to me, right?
Yeah.
But see, by today's standards, I could be people out there could be in the middle of romancing whoever they're with. They get a text message and they're like, oh, stop, hold on a second. It's so disrespectful. And you're like, well, it's normal now. Well, it's normal not to have a real brain anymore, because you do that in the 70s and 80s. If you were to drop a smartphone to the human being in the 70s, they would say, like, listen, don't bother me. I'm with my family. I'm with this. I'm doing this. Now, today,
No phone calls during dinner.
No.
And that's so
That was
important
that was a
too.
rule
I
in our
remember that
house.
too.
Mine too.
And what's the development level
And
on
no
a
phone
child?
calls
We have
after
dinner from
7.
this time to this time.
Yeah, but no
I
phone
don't want
calls
your
after.
friends coming around until after that
Exactly.
Right, no phone calls after like 7, 8 o'clock either. My dad would hang up on him. He'd go over to the phone and he'd go,
You know what one of the excuses is? They say of why people today don't have dinner together. It's sickening.
time. They don't like each other.
That is
They don't
one.
like each other,
One of
John.
them, but on the top of the list is because the kids are picky eaters. Who runs the show? Like,
Kids.
when I was younger, and
Yeah, fuck you. Go hungry.
exactly, I don't run a diner. This
Yeah.
is what we're having tonight. If you're that hungry, guess what? If you don't want to eat it, you're going to eat it again tomorrow.
Right.
You'll have all your leftovers.
I was really fortunate. My mom was a good cook. So, except Brussels sprouts.
speak of
I mean.
texting, I'm texting my 3:30 appointment to let her know I'm going to be late.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sorry. It's not that you guys aren't
No, you're
important.
not, because we're wrapping this up.
Oh,
Okay.
we're done. We're done. All right. So, I was going to say one more thing about phones.
Go
Can I
ahead,
do?
please do.
Let's go.
Okay.
Say it, Joe, Mr. Phone, with his phone in his
listen,
ear.
but go by it, because it's not about just being old and out of touch. It's being a human being and in touch. Is what I'm saying. Is that our generation today is out of touch. That's the problem. We're not socially connected. Think about child development. Okay, you start to get interested in boys or girls, whatever your thing is. You're like, say, 12 years old. You get a phone call. You used to be able to pull that phone and it's on this long cord, and you're looking your parents in the face while you're trying to romance your partner. But that development level, that makes sense. Now what happens?
To go in the bathroom and close the door.
A 12-year-old boy is hiding by himself. That should not happen. and he's taking pictures of his junk, sending it to his 11-year-old, girlfriend. These are things that should not be happening right now. The technology is going to here, but human development is still as slow as it always was. You get my point?
Got it.
And let me finish with this just real quick, just in case you think anything I'm saying is wrong. I'm going to prove this. You heard the lineup I said from 1979, right?
Yes.
Okay, here's the lineup from 1999, which was the last time that they did this because nobody cared about it anymore. The lineup was, oh God, where can I find it here? Oh yeah, these heavy hitters. You ready? Machine Head, Sprung Monkey, and Loudmouth.
Sprung Monkey.
Those were the headliners in 1999.
That figures.
Didn't that go down a little bit? That's
The
because the
Sprung
musicians
Monkeys.
today suck compared to what they did, because nobody's taking the time to learn how to play instruments, and they don't know how to work together. Social intercourse. All right then. So this has been the Rise Above show. We will see you next time.
So long.